The things I wish I had done. When I was younger, America, the 90s. Joe Carter sat quietly on the old wooden chair on his porch, staring at the dusty road stretching before him. The scent of dry grass lingered in the air, carrying memories of the past. He had always thought of himself as a strong man, a responsible father. But now, as the twilight of his life approached, he realized there were things he had not done, and those things weighed heavier on his heart than any regret he had ever known. I wish I had said, "I'm proud of you." In 1975, Joe was a young man full of dreams, but instead of chasing them, he chose to stay on the family farm, continuing the tradition passed down by his father. When his son Michael was born, Joe wanted him to be strong, resilient, not soft. He rarely praised Michael. Even when the boy won a math competition or earned a medal in basketball, Joe would only nod and say, "Good, but you can do better." Michael grew up in the silence of his father, longing for words of affirmation that never came. I wish I hadn't pushed my son away. The 90s arrived with the rise of technology, and Michael became fascinated with computers. He dreamed of working in the field, but Joe couldn't understand it. Computers? What's so special about them? Can't you just stick to farming? Joe had said the day Michael announced he wanted to study computer science. They argued. Michael was disappointed. Joe was furious. The day Michael left Texas for the city, Joe stood at the door, silent. When the door shut behind his son, he didn't realize it would be the last time they spoke for years. I wish I had picked up the phone. Time passed. Joe continued his life on the farm, and Michael drifted further away. He often thought about his son, but never picked up the phone to call. Once, he held the receiver in his hand, but then put it back down. "He's probably too busy. He wouldn't want to hear from me." Then, one day, Joe received the news that Michael's mother had passed away. For the first time in years, they saw each other again. Michael had grown into a man, confident but distant. "I kept waiting for you to call," Michael said softly, his voice filled with unspoken pain. Joe could only bow his head. I wish I had learned to love the right way today. As Joe sat waiting for his son to return, he realized that time would never rewind. But he still had a chance to change the present. A familiar car pulled up in the driveway. Michael stepped out, now a grown man. Joe stood up and walked toward him, slowly but determined. For the first time in his life, he looked straight into his son's eyes and said, "I'm proud of you, son." Michael froze for a moment, then smiled, a smile Joe hadn't seen in years. Finally, he had said what should have been said long ago. I wish I had apologized when I had the chance. Joe had never once apologized to Michael, not when he scolded him too harshly, nor when he hurt him with his cold silence. He remembered a time when Michael was 12, and he had accidentally broken his grandfather's pocket watch. The boy had trembled, trying to explain it was an accident, but Joe had been too angry to listen. "You're always so clumsy. Can't you do anything right?" Michael had fallen silent, picking up the broken pieces. That was the first and last time he ever tried to share his fears with his father. Joe wished he had not said those words. He wished he had knelt down, hugged his son, and said, "I'm sorry, it was just a watch, but you are more important." But he hadn't, and now it was too late to turn back time. I wish I had spent more time with my family. Joe spent most of his life working on the farm from dawn till dusk, believing it was for his family. But he never realized that what his family needed was not just money, but his presence. Michael had often stood by the barn door, holding a baseball, his eyes filled with hope. "Dad, can we play catch?" "I'm busy, son. Maybe later." Later turned into never. One day Michael stopped asking. He played alone. Now Joe had all the time in the world. But Michael was gone, and no one was waiting by the barn door anymore. I wish I had let my son see that I wasn't always strong. Joe grew up in a household where men never cried. His father once told him, "A man must be strong. Never let anyone see you weak." And Joe believed it his whole life. When his wife Mary passed away, Michael sat silently by her casket, tears streaming down his face. But Joe stood still, suppressing his emotions, saying nothing. He thought he was doing the right thing, being the pillar of strength. But in Michael's tear-filled eyes as he turned away, Joe finally understood. His son didn't need a father of stone. He needed a father with a heart. Joe wished that day he had hugged his son and cried with him. He wished he had said, "I miss your mother too. You're hurting, aren't you?" But he hadn't. And from that day on, the distance between them only grew. But there's still one thing I can do. The car engine stopped, and Michael stepped out, older now, with a few gray strands in his dark hair. But his eyes were still those of the little boy who once waited for his father to play catch. Joe took a deep breath, walked toward his son, and, before Michael could speak, said the words he should have said years ago. "I'm sorry, son." Michael froze. A long moment passed. Then slowly, he smiled, a smile that warmed the coldest corners of Joe's heart. This time, Joe wouldn't let the most important thing slip away again.